Nokia's done it again, and boy is my portfolio loving it. It's one of those stocks that we've been talking about for months, and because it's been so neglected for so long by so many people, it's just been a really good deal, and a lot of people have been picking it up finally, and we're starting to see some gains. Is there still time to get in on Nokia stock, or are the gains already passed? If you're new here, welcome. My name's Trey McKee with Benevolent Investors. Here we're all about growing our net worth using wise investments, and then turning around, using our fat gains to impact the world around us through generosity. Now, before we get into the details, please note that I try to include timestamps down below for your convenience, so feel free to jump around the video. So, Nokia's earnings are coming up in a couple of days, but before we get into that, I wanted to put out a quick little video sharing about Nokia's role in my portfolio, as well as a quick refresher, like what's so good about Nokia, what's kind of going on, what can we expect from the earnings, so we can set our expectations right for the earnings call. As many of you know, we've started to see this weird polarization in the stock market in the last few weeks. We've seen a lot of the more speculative stocks. For example, some of the stocks we've been talking about on this channel would be like Palantir, Desktop Metal, Skills. They've just been getting hammered, and a lot of that is probably because the economy is opening back up in the case of Skills. But at the same time, we're seeing this dynamic where a lot of money is pouring back into the big, safe, reliable names like Apple, Amazon, Shopify, Nvidia, and people have been giving me flack for a long time. Like, I'm an Apple fanboy, and I have a lot of Apple, and people have been like, dude, it's already $2 trillion, it can't get any bigger, you're so stupid for putting your money in there. But I've been enjoying the 20% gain we've been seeing since early June, despite all of that hate, and for some reason, somehow, Apple is now worth like $2.5 trillion, which is crazy to me, but it's happening. So we've been seeing this dynamic playing out in the market with this polarization. So where does Nokia fit? Is it on the speculative side or on the safe side? So depending on what your cost basis is, Nokia could be up as much as 50% for you so far this year. For me, it's not quite that much, but I'm still loving these gains. As a result of the relatively rapid upturn, my options, my leaps, I have strike prices between 3 and 450, like a range of leaps, expiring in 2023. They've been doing really well, pulling my kind of portfolio in a rather positive direction, I think, for the last few weeks. Nokia has been anywhere from 5% to 15% of my portfolio, so you can imagine that has a pretty big impact when it's up like 10, 20, 30% over a few weeks. One of the punchiest bits of news, one of the punchiest reasons for this big upturn was on July 13th, where Nokia made a surprise announcement that their full year expectations for 2021 will be raised in the upcoming earnings call, which is coming out in a couple days. Here are some of the numbers we've looked at in the past presentations, where they showed net sales between 20.6 billion euros and 21.8 billion euros, with a comparable operating margin of 7 to 10%. They're expecting positive free cash flow on the docket, and as we've seen, CEO Pekka Lundmark making really aggressive moves to cut costs and optimize the whole company's organization for efficiency. After this announcement, we saw the stock jump up like 10%. So people are excited about Nokia, and it's finally starting to make some moves. So people are starting to finally put their money back in after it's just been kind of like sailing around $4-ish for like a very long time. And so Nokia is basically saying, hey, we were expecting things to be like not super awesome actually for 2021, because that's the year we're spending all of our energy on just like metamorphosizing into something awesome. And then in 2022, and especially 2023, is when we're going to start tearing it up. But they're saying, actually, dude, these last couple of quarters, we're looking pretty hot, you know, we're kind of starting to make some money now. So I'm really interested to see where that's going to take us. In this video linked up here, we talked about Pekka Lundmark's moves, some of his aggressive strategies that he's hoping to use to get Nokia back into first place in the world. They have new data speed records, new deals with major international telecom companies, massive cost-cutting measures to slim down the organization and boost profitability. And all of these have been areas Nokia's hustling to implement. But Pekka was clear that these effects probably, like the changes, won't really yield, you know, bottom line big benefits for like a few years. In that video, I also mentioned that I think the stock should be worth kind of like $5 or $6 versus the $4 it was at the time when I published the video. So, you know, we're up there like in high fives now. You know, and so like $1 a share doesn't sound like a lot of money. You're like, oh, I made $1, very cool kind of thing. But if you hold thousands of shares and, if you hold it over the years and we start to see the price go up to 10, $15 and then implement a dividend, that could end up being some really big gains over, the next few years. Now, Nokia typically likes to play it really, really safe with their forecasts. But in recent weeks, with this announcement, it sounds like they're going to be pulling off a big beat. And it's showing the world that Pekka probably didn't just pull off like a fluke in the first quarter. And that he's really kind of going to change the company like big time. Continuing on with some of the other updates we've had for Nokia, we saw Nokia pull off a not so insignificant victory a couple of weeks ago with a win in China. Despite local juggernauts Huawei and ZTE's presence at the table, Nokia grabbed 4% of a $6 billion deal being worked out in China for 3 new 5G contracts. And then 4% doesn't sound game changing, but actually that's really significant because a bunch of countries around the world, out of concerns for security, are locking Huawei out. And so China is retaliating against numerous companies and countries. So this has opened up a bit of a gap in the market for Nokia and local Scandinavian rival Ericsson. But Nokia is rapidly snapping up the opportunities while Ericsson seems to find itself in more and more negative press with lawsuits and settlements and patent issues. And for those curious, Ericsson's losing market share, especially in places like China, after its home country, Sweden, made moves to block Chinese vendors from coming in onto Swedish networks. And just so you know, it seems like Ericsson is still trading at a bit of a premium compared to Nokia despite this market share turnaround. Nokia was also selected by Taiwan's TST to extend their 5G footprint, continuing to build on a strong relationship there as well. One of the neat features highlighted in the Taiwan TST deal was the ENDC functionality on Nokia's AirScale radios, which allows simultaneous connections with 5G and LTE networks, allowing for even higher bandwidth. Especially if you are using a 5G phone, you've probably seen the little signal on the top of your phone that says, 5G with the number of signal bars, like 3 bars or 4 bars or whatever. Basically, on most phones and most networks, you can only be on 5G or 4G/LTE, or even 3G in some more remote areas. But one of these claims to fame is that you can be on 5G and LTE, so you have all of the benefits of the 5G network with none of the disadvantages, being, mainly that 5G coverage is still quite sparse in a lot of places. And so that's the kind of technology that keeps Nokia's patent division growing healthy, which I'm sure will be one of the keys to their market domination in coming years, leading to the return of the dividend that they've been talking about. So while we're waiting the last couple of days for the new earnings information to come out, please take a moment to check out this video where I go into more depth on the potential upcoming dividend slotted for 2023 for the time being. Thanks again, and don't forget to stay generous.